And we are officially live, broadcasting only on onedealaway.com. Good morning, everybody. My name is Nev. This is Money Matters, and it is Thursday. And Thursday basically means we talk my favorite, or one of my favorite subjects, real estate. So, welcome everybody watching this live only on onedealaway.com/live, where we broadcast every single morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or New York time for my international audience that just might find it a bit easier to calculate when they should show up on their end. I, of course, want to welcome everybody watching this on YouTube as well. Feel free to say hello in the chat, in the comments. Let me know what questions you have. Let me know what comments you have, how you feel about certain things. How are you doing? Are you finding deals? Are you buying deals? Are you selling deals? Because all of that is going to be part of a conversation today. Today, we actually have quite a bit of news about what's going on with the foreclosures and evictions. As you know, President Trump this past weekend, only about 4 or 5 days ago, has signed this executive order that is quote unquote protecting renters from being evicted. But is it, or is it just an election ploy, a marketing scheme? That is what we're going to discuss and talk about today. We're going to go deep, deep, deep into what is actually inside the executive order and what does it actually mean for those that are about to be evicted, looking to evict somebody, about to be foreclosed on, looking to be foreclosing on somebody. So we're going to be talking about some of those things. We also have some data and information about what's going on with the U.S. properties. Are we foreclosing? Are we not foreclosing? What's going on with the potential foreclosure activity and how it could be coming and rolling out over not just 2020, but 21 and 22 and 23 and maybe 24. So we'll see. This is going to be a very long, very prolonged process, and I will be here with you every step of the way, guiding you through with Money Matters show, of course, where we focus on how do we actually protect our money. We're going to be talking a bit more about what's going on in New York City because you might be interested and curious about that. And I'm going to be sharing with you as well the really important and interesting information that I have uncovered when it comes to mortgages. As you can see, we have excellent news, and you are in the right spot if you want to learn more about where we are in real estate and where could we possibly go. Let's do this. And good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Thursday to you. Weeks are flying by, days are flying by. I can't believe it. But now we're going to go into, and let's get started with this particular article over here. Well, it's not really an article, it's really a website that is basically sharing of the what's going on when it comes to eviction stuff, because that is important and big news that we're going to be covering today. So in the 17 cities that they track, landlords have filed for 34,699 evictions during the pandemic. They filed for 1,620 evictions last week only. And of course, here we actually have here is where the active eviction moratoriums exist. So it's going to be this sort of like a cross thing. Austin, Texas would be a good example. And the little line right here that you might be seeing where I'm moving my mouse means end of moratorium. So here is a very interesting chart that you will see that we're seeing some areas where the eviction moratorium is still in place, and you will see the trend since 2015, how it's kind of downish, right? We're seeing this sort of L shape kind of thing. But then we get into the places where the moratorium has ended and you can start seeing spikes. Look at Ohio. I mean, it's definitely starting to jump. Texas, not as pervasive as Ohio, but definitely up. Then we go a little bit into Gainesville, Florida, and Connecticut, and as you can see down, kind of that flat component. And what I am noticing, hopefully you're noticing the same thing, is that every time that moratorium has ended, the number of evictions is spiking up. Now, in some, it's much more smooth, kind of slightly going up. In most of them, it's a very pronounced how it's going up. And this is one of those pieces that I think it's very important for us to consider as we continue our conversation about what in the world is going on with the evictions. So, here is what I basically believe. I believe that the executive order, here is the executive order actually right here coming from the president. As you can see, you can read the whole thing if you want to. This was issued 5 days ago? Yeah, so it was issued on Saturday. Today is Thursday, August 13th, so this was Saturday, August 8th. And here is what I think about the whole thing. This is nothing more than just an election 2020 propaganda, marketing, however you want to call it, so that President Trump can continue going on his rampage of I'm the best, I'm the greatest, I'm the only one, nobody else but me. So it worked for him for one election. Who knows? It might work for election number 2. We will see. I'm not gonna get into politics, but originally when this was announced as being out there, I'm like, okay, cool. He did something. I don't know if he has authority, but you gotta give man props for creating something. Then I ended up reading, and I'm like, there's nothing in here that does anything whatsoever. So what's inside this whole thing? Let me remove this so that we can actually take a look. So over here, he kind of introduces it, blah, blah, blah. There's really not much. It's a lot of words and nothing in there. And so here is sort of the response, public health risk and foreclosures. And I'm like, okay, yes, something is going to be in here. And here is basically what he's saying. Oh, okay, the Secretary of Health and Human Services and Director of CDC shall consider whether any measure temporarily halting residential eviction of any tenants for failure to pay rent are reasonably necessary to prevent the further spread of COVID. Okay, they'll consider it. The Secretary of Treasury and the State of Housing and Urban Development shall identify any and all available federal funds to provide temporary financial assistance to renters and homeowners. Sure, we'll look into it. The Secretary of Housing and Urban Development should take action as appropriate and consistent with applicable law to promote the ability of renters and homeowners to avoid eviction and foreclosure resulting from financial hardship. Okay, yeah, sure. We'll see what action we got. Not much, but sure. In consultation with the Secretary of Treasury and Director of FHFA, shall review all existing authorities and resources that may be used to prevent eviction and foreclosure for renters and homeowners resulting from hardship. Okay, so as you can see, there's nothing, absolutely nothing in this thing that says moratorium extended, you can't evict, none of this is going to happen. Like nothing in here. And then it's like ends with the general provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair otherwise affected authority granted by law to executive department or agency, functional director or office of management budget. This order shall be implemented consistent with applicable laws and subject on availability and appropriations, and it's not intended and does not create any right or benefit, substantial or procedure enforceable at law or in equity by any part against the United States, the departments, agencies, blah, 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 blah. So it's nothing, absolutely nothing than a marketing stunt. And if you think that I am wrong, let's see what other people have to say on the same subject. I mean, we just read what the darn thing said, and as you can see, not much. So here we go. Here is a nice little report, news, whatever, coming from Bloomberg City Lab. In its solo act, the White House pledged to defer payroll taxes, waive student loan payments, and authorize a new program to boost unemployment benefits by $400 a week. Trump also promised action on behalf of renters. Quote, I am protecting people from eviction. This is Trump, right? He's like, I'm doing this. single-handedly, I am going to save millions of people, and we just read it, and there's nothing in it to do much of anything for anyone whatsoever, other than instructing a handful of folks to basically go and say, hey, take a look at a budget. Hey, take a look at what can be done. Hey, consider if this is possible. And you know what? These bureaucracies, they take freaking forever. I'll be honest with you. And, it's going to be months before they can even decide of like, hey, look, we found $1. There's $1 in our budget. We could help one person. I mean, it's ridiculous, y'all. It's absolutely ridiculous. So evictions are not stopping, are not pausing. And my understanding is that the Congress, the Senate, the people that actually create these acts and stuff that are authorized, maybe a bit more than the president, to make some of these changes, well, they are politicking, they're arguing, and they are not creating much of anything whatsoever. Saturday's executive order doesn't renew the federal moratorium on eviction that expired in July. In fact, it doesn't authorize any new action on eviction or foreclosure at all. Simply just instructs certain agencies without promising anything, doing anything, or guaranteeing anything. It's just literally like, hey, you out there, people that you little people that you work in these agencies for me, you go out there and go do something, see what can be done. You do it right away. And then, when they were like, look, there's no money, there's no resources, there's nothing, the laws are written the way that they're written, like it is what it is. When, that ends up hitting, of course, what is his PR going to be? Well, the director of such and such agency is incompetent, and the manager of such and such agency is, come on. Anyways, let's get out of the politics. Let's go and learn. So Diane Yentl, the president of National Low Income Housing Coalition, basically said the president alluded to stopping evictions, but the executive order fails to provide any meaningful relief. Deborah Thrope, deputy director of the National Housing Law Project, added, Trump's executive order does nothing. So there you go. It's not just me. It's people that are actually, legally able to take a look at this stuff and say, what can you possibly do? And it turns out you could not do much of anything. But to add the insult to injury, you know how the Trump in executive orders say, hey, FHFA, which is Federal Housing Finance Agency, not association, agency, you go out there and see what can be done with this financing stuff. So what did FHFA come up with? Please hold on to your chairs, y'all, because this is amazing response and not the one that we all hoped for. New fee on mortgage refinance could cost the owners $1,400. So in response to the executive order to assist folks, FHFA, can't say that 5 times fast, rolled out a new adverse market refinance fee of 0.5% on Wednesday, which will be assessed for cash out and no cash out refinances sold by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac after September 1. Wow. So they are actually going to charge you more. And I know it doesn't sound like a whole lot more to have like half a point or like 0.5%. I completely understand that. But we're not talking like $1,000 here. We're not talking $100 here. We're not even talking $10,000 here. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here, which end up accumulating, right? So the Mortgage Banker Association, also known as MBA, you will see it as MBA listed here as well, issued a statement calling the new fee ill-timed. No kidding. Requiring Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to charge a 0.5% fee on refinance mortgage they purchase will raise interest rates on families trying to make ends meet. Even worse, the September 1 effective date means that thousands of borrowers who did not lock in their rates could face unanticipated cost increases just days from closing. MBA has called the FHFA to reverse the decision. All right, what does this mean for you? So if you already refinanced, that's fine. If you're purchasing, it doesn't sound like this new fee thing is going to affect you, but it will affect you if you are refinancing. Today is August 13th, so we have about 2 weeks before this rolls out, unless they sort of pull it back and say, just kidding, just kidding, which they probably won't, but if they do, then great. If they don't, if you are in a process of refinancing, perhaps acting as swiftly as possible, lock in that rate if you can. It might cost you extra, but you want to do the math. So what you want to do is you want to calculate, if you were to lock in the rate right now and keep it locked for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever the closing is, what is that cost going to be? It potentially could be a bit less than what it might cost you to keep it going and then pay the 0.5% fee. If it is more than 0.5%, then going with the fee from FHFA might be a cheaper option for you. Nonetheless, you definitely want to calculate and account for that stuff. And now the question is, how did they come up with the $1,400? Well, here it is in this example right here. They basically just used an example and saying, well, for example, for a loan of $291,300, which is the national average, and we'll talk about it in a moment, the median home price in the second quarter, that 0.5% will cost lenders $1,456. The September 1 sell date means that some of the refis impacted are already locked and can't be adjusted at this point, so lenders will have to pay the fee. If the deal isn't locked, the cost likely will be passed on to the consumer, aka you and I. So they're saying, well, we're not charging the consumer, we're just charging the lender. Well, what the heck do you think lender is going to do? They're not going to be like, well, that's fine, we're just going to eat it. No. You see, every time that there's an added cost to the business, they pass it on to the consumer. That's what most people don't understand. It sounds lovely to say, well, we're just doing this for the the agencies and for the businesses. We're not affecting consumers. But the problem is that every time that is done, the consumers end up paying it, because the business, because they have to stay afloat, they have to stay alive, they cannot keep accumulating all these extra costs and expenses, they have to pass it on to the consumers. So that 0.5% that they're charging the lenders is going to be passed on to you. Now, I did mention that the price, the average median cost of a home has gone up, right, to that $291,300. And of course, this wouldn't be the full show if we didn't show you how that changed. So here we go. Median home prices grew in 96% of metro areas during the second quarter of 2020. Silicon Valley remains most expensive. Shocker. Nobody expected that, right? All right. Water. Thank you for indulging me. Median single-family home prices rose year over year in 96% of its measured markets in the second quarter. The national median existing single-family home price in quarter two was $291,300, or up 4.2% year over year. So, if you're wondering if the stock market is the only one that keeps on perpetually going up, well, real estate seems to be doing the same thing. There were 15 metro areas that saw double-digit price growth, NAR said, National Association of Realtors, including Huntsville, Alabama, up 13.5%, Memphis, Tennessee, 13.4%, Boise, Idaho, 12.6%, Spokane Valley, Washington, 11.8%, Indianapolis, 10.8%, and Phoenix, Arizona, 10.2%. Okay, well, it didn't spike up in San Francisco or New York that much, but I do have New York as what's happening there. San Jose, California remained the most expensive metro area in the country. San Francisco was the second most expensive metro area. We kind of expected that piece, right? So there you go. There you have it. What's happening in the market when it comes to the prices. Now, I did promise a bit of news. I think potentially excellent news. Remember a week ago when I was telling you that the UWM, the nation's largest mortgage originator, has rolled out the super low 1.875 15-year fixed rate mortgage? Remember that? If you don't, if you didn't watch the show, it is available on replay on YouTube channel under Money Matters. You're going to go into the real estate, and I believe that that was last week. If not, it was 2 weeks ago. So one or the other, please don't quote me on that one. But now we have even sexier news, if you ask me personally, and that is that UWM is rolling out a 30-year mortgage rates of 1.99%. Did I not tell you that we are going to drop below 2%? I said it. I claimed it. Here we go. Now, of course, I don't have a crystal ball. Every so often, I am wrong. I am right. I never know exactly how things are going to play out. I just take a look at what's been going on, what the direction is, utilizing some of that stuff with my experience and knowledge, and try to kind of forecast as to where I think we're going to be. It's an educated guess, but it is a guess. And this time around, I was 100% accurate to say that we're going to see below 2% 30-year mortgage. It was just a matter of time. Now, if you have not refinanced so far, now might be a good time. Now might be a good time. So go in and refi away. Again, not a financial advice, just a thought that I have that I am thinking about, because I have been thinking about refinancing, and I have been waiting personally for the rates to drop even lower so that I can actually go in and try to get something super, super low that makes a lot of sense for me. Now, here is the catch of this 1.99. When they roll out some of these mortgage rates that you see, why is it that you as a consumer might not see it? Well, you can't do business with UWM. UWM basically is there for the mortgage brokers. Well, the broker, how do they make money, right? They sell you into the mortgage. You don't pay them. They actually get the percentage difference. So if they're offered, say, 1.99%, they might put on 0.25% or 0.5% or whatever, right? And so your rate might not be 1.99, it might be like 2.125 or 2.5 or sometimes 2.99 depending on who you're dealing with. So you will never see what you see is being offered to them, because most people that you and I deal with, mortgage brokers, lenders, and that kind of stuff, they end up taking a cut. Now, you of course have an option. If you have ever done anything with buying a home when you have to go finance it, whether it's refi or you're actually buying a home right out, you likely have seen that you have these things called points. Points basically means that you are paying up front. So what points work in the lending world, because I've done that as well, and you know, there might be a future where lending is private lending is going to be a good way to potentially make money. Not right now, but in a future it might be. And if that, and when that, not if, when that rolls out, I will definitely add a course of how to be a private lender. And of course, that is going to live inside One Deal Away, and it's going to go in the academy as well. So if you are already in academy, congratulations, and stay in, because that is going to be rolled out at no additional cost to you. How amazing is that? So there you go. Anyways, what ends up happening when you are doing the mortgage stuff is that a lot of times the unsophisticated buyers will go in and they only focus on the rate, and they will just shop for the rate alone, but they don't look at the points. So the way to kind of make more money as a lender is that you charge points. So you charge things up front where folks have to kind of shell out, and then you give them a lower rate. So if you want a higher rate, then you pay no points, or you pay less points. If you want a lower rate, then you pay more points. At the end of the day, for the lender, it's the exact same thing. it's pretty much the same thing for you as well to a degree. It's just the difference is, are you paying upfront or are you paying on an ongoing basis? That's the math that you have to do on your own to intelligently come up with stuff. And not always, sometimes you actually pay more when you get a lower rate because the points are much higher. So you absolutely want to calculate that as you're making decisions. Don't just get stuck with only, oh, well, my rate is, 2.1. What points are you paying to get to that rate? So this article does a very good job talking about it. Sorry about my, scratching and itching all over the place. The United Wholesale Mortgage announced Tuesday that it is offering conventional mortgage rate as low as 1.99%. But the brokers are saying you won't find a no-cost loan in the low twos or high ones, meaning low 2%, high 1%. Because when borrowers go out to take out the mortgage, they pay for their rate. So UWM CEO Matt Shiba explained that a $300,000 mortgage for the right borrower could cost around $4,000 more to get the lower 1.99% rate. However, of course, this depends from person to person on your, what you're buying, how much you're buying, how much you're putting down, what your credit score is, what your income is. Sometimes they actually take the experience. Is it a primary home? Is it an investment? Like, all of those things play a role into that stuff. So you definitely want to pay attention and keep shopping around. So this is just ballpark figures to give you an idea of what we're talking here. Now, of course, one of the brokers is saying that here's a scenario that a top tier borrower with 60% LTV, loan to value, and an excellent credit score might pay around $5,000 for a 2.125 rate on a $470,000 loan. So they're paying just over 1.06% it actually comes out to. While they would pay close to $10,000 for a 1.99%. So to reduce your interest, a 30-year interest, by what? 0.13%, something like that, a little bit less than that. You have to pay well over almost 2.5 points. So it might cost you way more. And so you want to calculate that stuff. Now, when we talk about 60% LTV, that means that you're putting down 40% down, 60% borrowing. So you want to be careful as well. A lot of times when people are doing the math and trying to sell you a home, they will get into what I call creative finance or creative accounting, where they will actually present stuff that sounds really sexy when you look at it at a surface. But when you start digging deeper and start doing the math, you realize it's not sexy at all. Oftentimes, they will do this for investment properties where they will basically calculate that it's cash flow positive, but they will assume that you put 40% down or 60% down and all these crazy things. Well, most people, when they invest in real estate, they don't put 40% down. Of course, some do. Of course, some pay cash, but vast majority of people will put 20, maybe 25% down. Oftentimes, we're seeing folks that are going to put 5 or 10% down or go with FHA loan of 3.75% down. So, or sometimes even VA, which is a zero down. So you definitely want to pay attention and calculate when they give you information such as, well, this is what it is. Well, I am curious, what happens at 80% LTV, right? What happens when I only put 20% down and borrow 80%? What are my points? Because typically your points and your rates are going to be higher the more you borrow, and typically you get much more favorable the less you borrow. However, it is a wonky economics right now. Everything is upside down and weird, and you might find yourself getting better rates when you borrow more. Ha! I know, it sounds really silly, but it's the truth. That's what we're kind of seeing that is happening. We have seen other wholesale lenders follow suit with UWM, but they seem to be leading the way. This rate comes less than 2 weeks after the company announced the 1.875% for 14-year mortgage, which we just talked about, and that was coming with a FICO score of at least 640. So it sounds like you could potentially get this amazing rate as long as you have a FICO score of 640 or more. So there you go. Now, 2 weeks ago, Quicken Loans advertised a limited time rate of 1.99% on 15-year mortgage, and according to one broker, Parkside Lending and Stearns Lending are offering 15-year fixed rate as low as 1.75 to some mortgage brokers depending on the relationship. So, what does this all mean? Well, it means that the rates are dropping and have dropped, and it might be a great time if you haven't refinanced quite yet to rethink. So if you are now still in that 4%, 5%, 6, 7% rate, going down into the twos might be saving you quite a bit of money. Of course, you can cash out refinance if you have enough equity, and if they allow you and stuff. Be prepared to put in some pay for some points and stuff. And sometimes if you do a cash out refi, oftentimes what they will do is they'll pay the points out of the cash out piece. So say that, it works out that you would get $50,000 cash out, but you have to pay $10,000 in fees and points and all of that stuff. What they'll do is they'll take the $10,000 out and just write your check for $40,000 that then you can do whatever you want. Hopefully you will do something very, very smart with that money and not just gamble it out. But then again, to each their own. So it's a good time for potentially to think and consider whether this makes sense. And you absolutely 100% want to shop around. Don't just get settled with one thing. If it's not as low as you think you can get it, utilizing a mortgage broker could be a great way to save money. Or you could, if you have some time on your hands, right, and you're not sort of, it doesn't bug you to spend an afternoon or a day or whatever to do this. A lot of the stuff is online anyways. Reach out to a few different mortgage lenders and do your own brokering, so to speak, and see what you can find to help you with this piece. The same goes if you are buying, and so you might want to, of course, shop around for the rates. If you are still thinking of buying, but you're like, my FICO score is not as good as it could be, then definitely work on improving your FICO score. And if you are interested to learn different tactics and ways of how you can do that, we do have a course on that on onedealaway.com. Simply go to onedealaway.com, click on demand, and you will be able to actually go into you probably want to look into the eliminate your debt component, because that's what we talk about. Or if you want to upgrade and learn more about different money management skills, how you can have way more money than you thought possible, and kind of just by utilizing some of this creative finance, then you want to get into the oh my gosh, my brain has just stopped working. Academy, yeah, thank you. Academy, of course, is a great way to get into the way to kind of learn about it. But what I'm trying to say, my gosh, my brain just stopped working. I actually have to look at my own. My gosh, I can't believe this. Have you ever done this where you know something and your brain literally just stops working? I mean, how ridiculous is this? Okay, hold on. Cut. On demand. So you're gonna go onto the on demand page, and I'm not quite sure. So of course you can join the academy. You can do the eliminate your debt, or no, I don't want that, but thank you. Or Money EMT. Thank you. Money EMT is the course that I was going to say that can actually help you with that stuff. Okay, now the interesting piece that I did want to cover and talk about is what's going on with some of these foreclosures and all these different things, and where are people going. So we're going to go into the news, into the article. Yes, we are going into the New York City. And of course, this is a Broadway play, but it might fit quite well. And this is coming from Zero Hedge. Hundreds of thousands of wealthy residents have already left New York City, and more are leaving every single day. The 1970s and 80s were nightmarish time for the city. And of course, if you've watched any of those like gangster movies and that kind of stuff, you've likely seen it. Or if you watch actually any of the movies from the 70s and 80s, they definitely depicted. The Taxi Driver could be one of those, right? So, anyways, now many of the old problems are starting to come back, and that's very, very scary. Their mass exodus of 420,000 New Yorkers between March 1st and May 1st. Roughly 5% of residents is what this accounts for, this amount of people. In the city's wealthiest blocks, in neighborhoods like Upper East Side, the West Village, Soho, and Brooklyn Heights, residential population decreased by 40% or more. What? I mean, imagine you live in a city, y'all, or in a neighborhood or whatever, right? And you have like 40% of your neighbors just vanish, gone. New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo stated that a single percent of New York's population pays half of the state's taxes. And he said that they're the most mobile people in the globe. And it makes sense, right? It's very easy for somebody who has a lot of wealth, a lot of money to just pick up and leave. They typically have second homes, and if they don't, it's very easy for them to buy or rent one. They can go to whatever area they want. It's very easy. Most of them have access to like private jets. So even when you and I can't jet around the world, they can. They might have yachts and boats, and they can rent it, buy it. So it's a very easy and simple thing for them to do. Their jobs also, a lot of them might not have a job, right? Job, like I gotta drive, 20 minutes somewhere and be physically there. And they have much more flexible ways of how they're making money and earning income. Most of them probably have multiple income streams that are coming from businesses, investments, all kinds of different things. And, some of those investments might include real estate. I don't know. For many of them, I know that they put money into real estate. So it's very easy for them to move. And now they're going somewhere else, and they're saying, quote, they're thinking, if I stay here, well, they pay a lower income tax because they don't have to pay New York City surcharge. I mean, living in New York City, just like San Francisco and other areas, is very, very expensive and very, very pricey. Now, of course, on the other side, we do have New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, and he's basically saying, I really could care less if wealthy people leave the city. Goodbye, good riddance, whatever, we'll figure it out. So, anyways, it's very interesting. But what they're saying here is that the sanitation budget was cut by more than 110 million. You wish, Nev. More than $100 million, and the mountains of trash are starting to pile up around the city. Gross. And I've already heard many reports that the rats are more pervasive than ever before. They're not even afraid of humans anymore, and they will actually, just like stray dogs or cats that I'm used to seeing, back home growing up in Europe, would come when you sit in a restaurant outside, would kind of come in and beg for food. Apparently, that's what the rats are doing in New York City. I don't know that because I haven't been in a city. I don't know. When was I last time in the city? In 2019, if not earlier. So it's been a very long time since I've been in the city. And frankly, the trash piling everywhere and rats sort of begging food out of you, I don't know that I want to go into the city right now, I'll be honest. Crime rates are absolutely skyrocketing. Again, not appealing for Nev. Number of shootings in the city during the month of July was up 177% compared to the same month a year ago. The wealthiest neighborhoods is grappling with a spike in armed robberies, and Manhattan's Upper East Side has seen 27 robberies over the past 4 weeks, which is a 286% increase. So there you go. That is what's happening in New York. And unfortunately, the similar stuff is happening in major cities all over the nation. Seattle, Portland. We're seeing some reports out of Boston, Massachusetts, San Francisco, LA. I mean, you name the major metropolis, and you are getting definitely getting all kinds of reports that things are, imploding left, right, and sideways. So something interesting for all of us to know and be aware of. But now we have additional information because, I want to give all that I can give of where we are and what's going on. U.S. properties with foreclosure filings continue downward trend amid coronavirus pandemic. What? How is this happening? Well, it's happening because a lot of the places are allowing for that forbearance component, right? And so with that, we're actually seeing, I think I have it right here. So look at this. We are down 18% from a year ago in the first 6 months of the foreclosures. So here is a really interesting chart that I wanted to share with you, and hopefully you can see the whole darn thing. You can see here in 2008. Now, when did we have the whole implosion? Well, it started in 2007 into 2008, right? But when did we hit the highest foreclosure? About 2 to 3 years later. And that's because foreclosures take time and then they start to dwindle down. Now, you will see that we've been dwindling down all the way here. And here we have a report only until the 2019. And 2019 is showing the 296 458 foreclosure filings in the first 6 months of 2019, right? Now, why did they share that piece is because we're seeing that we're on the downtrend, but that is going to turn over when we get into 2020, okay? And so when we get into the 2020, we're seeing something a bit different. And here is kind of the foreclosure starts. Now, foreclosure typically doesn't happen. Like, it's not one of those things of, hey, you owe me money, leave and I take the house and that's that. It doesn't work that way. You have to be delinquent for a very long time. Then there's a paperwork that has to be filed. Then we go in officially to the court. And, on the short end of things, it's like 3 to 6 months. On the long end of things, it could be as long as like 3 years. So it takes a very, very long time for that to happen. But now, because of the forbearance component, is they've also, and we talked about it, I want to say earlier this week, maybe, I don't know, days are starting to run together, weeks are running together nowadays, but we talked about the fact that when you go into the forbearance, that even if you were not current, even if you were owing, but you call in to go into the forbearance, your account is brought to current. And so that's what actually is pausing and kind of giving this false data, so to speak, of what is actually happening. And it's not false because they're calling it current even though they're not. So that in that regard, it's false. But we're seeing that the starts, and you will see where we're picking up. So Southern California, nobody's surprised by that. We're seeing right here, this is going to be Chicago area. What is this? Houston, Texas, it looks like. And it looks like DC, right? Is that Maryland? That's kind of where I see this thing happening. So let's take a look at what they have to say. Even as mortgage delinquency rate climbs, foreclosure activity continues to be artificially low due to the moratoria. It's inevitable that there will be a significant increase in foreclosure once these moratoria have expired. And of course, same chart. And but this one is interesting, and you can find this on Atom Data. And I will actually link it in the chat right now. So it's Adam. I can just copy paste. Done, Ev. Copy, paste. All right. So that's where you can actually find this information, right here. And you can actually zoom in, and it will give you a bit more information. Whoa, that is not what I wanted to do. That is not what I wanted to do. It will give you more information as to where we are and what's going on. So there you go. As you can see, it is definitely Los Angeles. So you will be able to kind of zoom around and play around with the whole piece. I'm not quite sure how you move it, but there you have it. Oh, Kentucky. So there you go. I was wrong. It's Kentucky. Anyways, let's continue reading. States with the highest foreclosure rates were Delaware, South Carolina, Maine, New Mexico, and California. those with the highest foreclosure rates in July 2020, with the population of at least 200,000, Trenton, New Jersey, Davenport, Iowa, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Dayton, Ohio. Those metropolitan areas with a population greater than 1 million, with the most foreclosure rates in July 2020, included Louisville, Kentucky, Riverside, California, Baltimore, Maryland, Cincinnati, Ohio, and St. Louis, Missouri. So you will notice a trend here as we go through the stuff. A lot of it is going to be California. There's going to be quite a bit of happening in like Missouri, Kentucky, Ohio, like that central states and stuff, which is very interesting. But it does make sense because a lot of people have lost their jobs in those areas as well. Several states posted month-over-month increase in foreclosure starts, including Connecticut, Michigan, Missouri, Virginia, and California. The lenders' foreclosures REO in July 2020 are down 14% from last month and 80% from a year ago. So you are seeing that that is actually going to, it's dropping, but keep in mind that all of that has to do with this moratoria of what's going on. Now, we do have a bit more foreclosure projections by region. So here we go, another chart that I wanted to share with you right now. And here is where we are seeing what's going on. So foreclosure projections by the region. Midwest, as you can see, the projection for 21 of second quarter of 21 is up almost double, more than double. New England or Northeast is again more than double. South is less than double, but South is already up anyways, so they're going to go super high up, and West is going to go up as well. Now, in this article, we do see the foreclosure activity in 2021 and kind of what it could actually look like. And so wanted to share with you this article right here so that we can plan for future. So the most likely scenario, the number of cases somewhere in the foreclosure process would shoot up more than 100% from the current level of about 145,000 to roughly 336,000 in the second quarter of 2021. So not much is going to happen right now, and this over here is basically this over here. They're saying best case scenario, we go from where we are right now, okay, which we are kind of dropping, to basically go from here to go a little bit up. The most likely case scenario is the orange line, and the worst case scenario is this gray line. So let's continue. The analysis project that the increase will likely hit the hardest hit end of the market concentrated in the West, California, Colorado, and Massachusetts, which is not in the West, but hey, that's kind of what we're seeing. Potential surge could get delayed if tempered if Congress continues a moratorium, which has expired and they haven't come up with anything, and Trump's executive order does absolutely nothing. So the potential surge of the delay is likely not to happen. So I could be wrong, but right now it's supposed to expire at the end of this month, and the eviction expired. But the home loans and all of that stuff is expiring this month. So some will probably allow for folks to extend by another 6 months. Many might not. So we'll see how that rolls out. But it does. I don't see Congress doing much of anything. I mean, they are struggling right now, left, right, and sideways on everything else. Even if the worst predictions pan out, the impact will be milder than when 600,000 to 950,000 homes faced possible foreclosure from 2008 through late 2011. And they're basically saying that that's more of the, what we had in it. But even if we go with the worst prediction, it shouldn't be as bad potentially, maybe. That's what they are saying right now. I don't know how accurate that is, right? If the foreclosure ban ends on schedule without major aid to struggling homeowners, the analysis project that at least 225,000 properties next spring will sit somewhere between initial foreclosure notice and final resale by lenders. The numbers rise to 505,000 in the worst case scenario developed in the analysis. Mid-level or more likely outlook projects that foreclosure activity will hit some 336,000 homes in the second quarter of 2021, with numbers increasing in almost all 50 states and at least doubling in 34 of those. See, here's the regions that we just looked at the chart, right? 14 states where filings would at least triple include Colorado, Massachusetts, California, Minnesota, and Michigan. States likely to escape with the least damage in a mid-range scenario include Kentucky, Maryland, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Florida. But interesting piece is that we have actually seen them actually starting to go through, so it makes sense that they would drop down when we get further in. So these areas will likely, the blue areas that I just talked about, are the likely ones that are going to go through it faster and sooner, and then we're going to see all these other areas that are going to be basically lagging behind. And here is the top MSAs with the greatest, no, that's something different that I want to show you. So here's the top 10 metros with the highest foreclosure rates in second quarter of 2020. And you will see that the California, Merced, California, Trenton, New Jersey, second, Utica, Rome, third, Reading, Pennsylvania, 4, Maryland, 5, Baltimore, Maryland, sorry, Mobile, Alabama, 6, McAllen, Edinburgh, Mission, Texas, 7, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Hazelton, Pennsylvania. Then we have Vallejo, Fairfield, California, and Peoria, Illinois. So those are the biggest foreclosure rates right now in the second quarter, and I think that these are going to continue to, evolve. Let's put it that way. Now, there's also a report that we've seen some areas that are getting a bit of, let me see if I can make this somewhat bigger. Yes, no? No. Okay, maybe this. We're seeing the top 10 metro areas where we're seeing the increased profit margin on home seller gains. So where they thought that they were going to list and where they're being able, what they're able to get back from their sales right now. And the dark blue line that you're seeing is the second quarter of 2019. The light blue line is the second quarter of 2020. And you will see that we have Spokane, Washington, Columbus, Ohio, St. Louis, Missouri, and St. Louis, Illinois, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Indianapolis, Canton, Manhattan, Massillon, Ohio, Greensboro, High Points, North Carolina, Rochester, New York, Kansas City, Missouri, and Birmingham, Alabama. So those are the top areas where they actually saw, and you will see that, like, for example, Birmingham, Alabama, it's like double of what they were getting before. I think that they're probably the biggest gainer right here, but everybody else seemed to have gained quite a bit. So this is where the prices have actually gone quite a bit up, where the sellers were able to make quite a bit of money. So there you go. That's what wraps up today's episode, today's show. We're going to go into the chat for everybody who is still hanging in there live. And I want to thank you, everybody who is watching this live. So we're going to go into the Q&A and hangout session in a moment. And for those of you watching on YouTube, thank you very much. Do subscribe. Do smash the like button right now so we can help more people by just spreading the news, and algorithms end up doing that all for us only by you smashing the like button. Thank you very much. Until tomorrow, stay forever money blessed, and do remember, you are only one deal away.